Hi, I'm Mark, and this is Let's Vibe, the channel all about crystals and our feelings. Now, we're still in Virgo season. We're towards the end of Virgo season, and I wanted to share another crystal that is associated with Virgo. This one is a little more unusual and lesser known than moss agate, which I shared in my last video. In Judy Hall's Crystal Zodiac, she gives the Virgo ascendant an interesting crystal called Okenite. So I gotta be careful because I keep my Okenite piece in this box with some padding because Okenite is a very fragile crystal and very unusual in its shapes. Mine looks like a little snowman. And so Okenite, it's a white crystal, but it's a very fuzzy crystal. Like the feel and the look of it is very fuzzy because it's formed of these basically like crystal hairs, and that's what's covering the matrix of this. Well, perhaps the whole thing is Okenite, but on the outside, this stone, they're too small to see on my piece, but the outside of this piece is covered with these really fine hairs, and my piece looks like velvet, looks like white velvet. And yeah, I always thought it looked like a little snowman. So I just keep it in the box, and I try not to touch it too often, because those little hairs are very delicate and they can break or bend. So you want to be careful when handling Okenite. And so I'm gonna set it down, but you know, there are Okenite specimens with really long needles or hairs, and you know, those pieces you definitely can't touch. So Okenite comes from India. I believe that's the only location it's found. And it's a very interesting stone because it has an energy that's kind of like a fuzzy blanket. I wouldn't say Okenite is particularly comforting, or, you know, it's not like rose quartz where it's a very, you know, super loving vibe. But it does feel fuzzy, nevertheless. When I meditate with Okenite, and by the way, when I say that it's not a sense of comfort, I'm not trying to, I don't mean to say that it's uncomfortable or anything like that. I just mean, like, you know, when you think of a fuzzy blanket, you think of comforting feelings and, you know, loving vibes. And this fuzzy blanket that Okenite has, it's very neutral, I want to say. It has a neutral feeling. It's not anything specific. So that's what I meant when I say it's not, you know, comforting. Anyway, so it has this fuzzy kind of energy, but when I meditate with it, it also feels like it has a muting energy, like a buffer. It feels like an energetic buffer around me. And what that does is it just kind of quiets my energy fields so that I can focus. And that's that's one of the main things Okenite can help with is focusing your energy, your thoughts, and your intentions. Okenite can magnify your intentions. You know, whatever it is you're focusing on, Okenite can magnify that energy. And that's the other part of its energy is this feeling. When I hold Okenite, I get this strong feeling of like the energy in my chakras, all of the chakras, suddenly narrows and gets really tight and focused. And so Okenite really puts you in that highly focused, intentional kind of space, which is perfect for manifesting. Because that's really how manifestation works, is focused intent. But aside from focused intent and manifestation, Okenite is also very useful for grounding high vibrational energies, like spiritual energies, grounding it into your energy fields, which is helpful for channeling, helpful for receiving healing, or receiving a download, like a message from your higher self or your spirit guide from source. So it's perfect for that. And another thing Okenite is useful for is self-forgiveness and karmic clearing. I think I would say, you know, in regard to the self-forgiveness, that fuzzy feeling and that buffer energy, I think that really can facilitate self-forgiveness, because it can give you a sense of protection from outside energies. Protection, like you're not thinking about other people, or you're not being distracted by anything going on around you. You're just in your personal space. And I think that's a great place to start when it comes to forgiving yourself for whatever you may be holding on to, or whatever mistake you may have made in the past. Because I think it gets really hard to forgive yourself when you've got guilt from other sources coming in, like you're thinking, you know, of people you hurt, or you're thinking of other people's accusation. It gets really muddy. And so it can get difficult to experience self-forgiveness, which is like an experience of releasing the hurt of whatever happened, whatever you're still holding on to. That's how I've experienced forgiveness and self-forgiveness, is as a release of, like, basically I was holding on to something that was hurting me. I mean, it sounds so counterintuitive, but I think that is pretty much what most people do. I mean, we're not taught to be aware of things like that, you know, growing up. Anyway, but I wanted to go back to, as far as the karmic clearing, That part is more relating to like ancestral healing, releasing of old karma, that kind of stuff. And that kind of thing occurs on a much more spiritual level, and is not. I'm. I mean, there are emotions, there are feelings involved, and experiences, but I feel like when it comes to the karma and ancestral healing, it's a little more out there, so to speak. Um, but anyway, I wanted to go back to the part about focused intent, because this is so important, and this is something that I've gradually learned the importance of over the last several years. We've all heard, that your thoughts are important, your thoughts, that you can have control and power over your emotional and mental states by training your thoughts, by making sure your thoughts are of a higher vibration. And I know that, when we first hear about this, or, it sounds ridiculous. It sounds kind of preposterous, because it's like, how can my thoughts possibly have control over anything? And that was especially my experience, because I grew up in a very energetically chaotic state. Like, I had no grounding. I was very, very sensitive, and my energy was just a mess, because there was no understanding of, being in the US, in Western society, that can barely comprehend the field of psychology, let alone high vibrational sensitivity. There's just no understanding of these things. And so I grew up with my energy just all over the place, lots of anxiety, lots of, intense emotions, and it was very difficult to manage. And so when I first started learning about the power of positive thinking, it just sounded ridiculous in some ways. Like, how can that matter? How can that do anything, But the problem is my thoughts were also in a state of chaos, and I didn't understand that there is power in intentionally directing your own thoughts. And it took me many years, many years, before that understanding clicked. And I think it really happened in like 2020. That was when it suddenly clicked that my thoughts have a direct impact on my feelings, on my emotions, and like a domino effect, it affects my external reality. And this is like the foundation, one of the foundational principles of manifestation work. But it took me a long time to make that connection and understand that it is really important. It's critical to practice focused, intentional thinking, not allowing the intrusive thoughts to take up space in your mind, not allowing the knee-jerk reactive thoughts to consume your energy. But it starts with meditation, really. I believe that's where it starts. Through meditation, you learn how to do all that by clearing your mind, allowing your thoughts to flow more naturally, taking notice of what thoughts are in your mind. That's where you begin that journey. So it's interesting though, because when I look back, when I was going through my worst years, with depression and anxiety and PTSD, I remember a number of times when I had these coincidental, very negative experiences. But I call it coincidental because things happened during those years that I was so afraid would happen. And I'm trying to think of a specific example, but I can't quite remember anything real specific. I think one time it was like, losing a friendship or someone, a relationship, a friendship breaking apart. And something like that would happen, and I could hear myself saying, this was exactly as I feared. And that's not funny. I mean, it wasn't funny in the moment at the time. It was horrifying. I was like, what's happening? Why are my fears coming true? My fears were coming true here and there at random times, something negative would happen. Because that's what I was thinking about all the time. Maybe not all the time, but a lot of my time and energy was spent worrying and feeling deathly afraid of all these different things. And then some of those things would happen because I gave it so much energy. I gave it so much intention. I was feeling, that's the other thing, I was feeling the fear and the hurt and the pain of the things that I was afraid would happen. And that's the key of manifestation. And see, manifestation, it works whether you're feeling negative stuff, painful feelings, or whether you're feeling joy and love. Manifestation is all about the law of attraction, and whatever you're embodying, whatever feeling and thoughts you're exercising, that's what you're attracting. And so I experienced that on the negative end multiple times, but it still took me years to make that connection, even though I had that thought that, I feel like I made this happen. I feel like I created it. I still didn't fully connect. And I think for me, I needed to go through a lot of healing, a lot of mental and physical, psychological, like brain healing. I think so much of me needed time to recover from that depression. And so it just took me years till I finally made that connection. So focused intent, intentional thinking is so powerful. It is so critical when it comes to manifestation. And a crystal like Okenite is all about that. So I just wanted to share that story with you. And I'd love to hear in the comments if any of you have any similar stories or similar experiences with manifestation, or what's been your experience with intentional focused thinking. So leave a comment or question down below. Oh, before I go before I end this, we got to talk about the song. So the song for Okenite. Okenite is pretty unusual, and it's difficult to find songs for the more unusual, more spiritual kinds of crystals like this. But I settled with the song Joshua Tree by Carly Rae Jepsen. I like that song, and I think it fits the themes of Okenite because she's singing about going out into the desert in Joshua Tree, down in Southern California, and finding clarity. That's really what I get. The message I get from the song is she finds this focus and clarity and intent, and I think that just fits with Okenite quite well. And it's a good song. It's like a contemplative, moody kind of song. And once again, thank you so much for vibing with me.